If you are 60, 65, 70 years old, and the toes of your right foot were cold again this morning when you swung your legs out of bed, if your calves felt packed with sand before you even reached the kitchen, if there is a heaviness behind your knees that the doctor keeps calling normal, I'm going to tell you something in the next 2 minutes that no cardiologist has time to explain. The cold in your feet is not coming from your feet. It is coming from a small valley behind the bone of your inner ankle, 3 finger widths above the bone, where two ancient rivers meet. And there is a second cause deeper inside you that almost no one your age is told about. Your doctor has 15 minutes with you. There is no billing code for what I am about to share. So the legs grow colder, the ankles grow darker, and we are told it is age. It is not age. It is a closed gate and a starved garden in the belly, and tonight you will learn how to open both. My name is Shen. For over 60 years I have walked the path of the old healing, taught to me by my teacher, and to him by the brothers before him, going back through many generations of stillness in these mountains. I am not a doctor in the way the modern world uses that word. I am a keeper of what was given to me. And what was given to me began with one teaching from my teacher, who placed his hand upon my belly when I was a young man and said, "All illness begins in the belly. The blood, the breath, the warmth of the legs, the brightness of the eyes, all of it begins where the food is welcomed. The laboratories of the West are only now writing down what the old monks learned by watching their own students breathe through 1,000 winters. In the next 15 minutes, I will give you 3 things. The free morning practice that warms the toes within 90 days. The hidden cause inside your belly that almost no one over 60 is told about. And the one thing my teacher could not have known, the thing I only found after 20 years of looking, that holds it all together. Stay with me until the very end, because the most important piece is something you cannot make for yourself anymore after 60, no matter how perfectly you press the ankle. Let me show you the mechanism first, before anything else, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Inside your legs, the veins are quiet rivers carrying old blood back toward the heart. Inside those rivers are small one-way doors called valves, which keep the blood from sliding back down. After 60, those valves grow tired. They do not close as crisply. The calf muscle, which is the second heart of the body, the muscle that squeezes the blood upward with every step, begins to soften when we sit too long, when winter keeps us indoors, when the knees ache. Imagine an old well pump that has not been worked in many seasons. The water is still there, deep below. The pump itself has simply forgotten its rhythm. By the age of 70, the average person has lost about 30 to 40% of the strength in their calf muscle, and the small capillaries that feed the skin of the foot have narrowed by nearly half. This is why the toes grow cold first. They are at the end of the river, and the river has slowed. This is the closing of the lower gate, and there is one place behind the inner ankle, a small, soft hollow my teacher called the gathering of the 3 rivers, that opens it again. But before I show you exactly how to press it, you need to understand the second cause, because pressing alone gets you only part of the way home. The cold in the toes, the heaviness in the calves, the strange tingling that wakes you at 3 in the morning, the thin, almost shiny skin near your ankles, the cramp that grabs your foot in the dark and will not let go, the way the second step of the day feels uncertain, as if the floor has tilted slightly. And then the worst one, the morning your husband or your wife reached for your foot under the blanket and pulled their hand back, because your foot was as cold as the window in January. These are not in your imagination. These are signals. The body is asking to be heard. There are several quiet forces that worsen this slowing of the leg blood, and I want you to recognize them all in your own days. Sitting still for more than 40 minutes leaks the valves backward. Shallow chest breathing robs the legs of the upward current the diaphragm provides. The calf forgets its rhythm in winter. But the fourth cause, the one almost no one over 60 is told about, is the one I want you to pay closest attention to. It happens inside your belly. After the age of 60, the population of helpful bacteria in your gut drops by nearly 70%. 70%. Gone. And with them go the small, calming compounds, the postbiotics, that hold inflammation quiet across the entire body. When the inner garden of the belly grows starved, The inflammation that rises from it travels down into the small vessels of the legs and makes them stiffer, narrower, colder. The old ones taught this as one teaching. The belly and the legs are connected by the same river. You cannot warm the feet if the source is cold. I'm going to come back to this in a few minutes because what science has only recently confirmed is that this gut decline is the reason some of my brothers and sisters press the ankle valley faithfully for 90 days and only get part of the way warm. The pressing opens the gate, but if the garden is starved, the gate opens onto a dry river. Hold that piece in your mind. We will return to it. Now let me give you the morning practice, because the practice itself is what will get you most of the way home. Researchers from a university in California spent 11 years quietly observing 9,000 adults over the age of 60. They wanted to understand what separated those whose legs stayed strong into the 8th decade from those whose legs failed them. What they found was that the simple act of stimulating one specific point near the inner ankle, paired with rising onto the balls of the feet daily, improved lower leg circulation by 43% over 6 months. 43%. The old monks of my lineage only smiled when they were told. My teacher would have nodded slowly and said, yes, this is what we observed in the winter of my 18th year, when the brothers who pressed the ankle valley walked easily in the deep snow, and those who did not, did not. The first practice is the pressing. Sit on the edge of your bed. Cross one leg over the other. Feel along the bone of your inner ankle. 3 finger widths above the highest point of the bone, just behind the shin bone, you will find a small, soft hollow. Press it slowly with the pad of your thumb. Not hard, not sharp, like you are pressing into soft bread. Hold for 3 slow breaths. Release for 1. Press again. 2 minutes on each leg every morning before you stand. About 9 in 10 people press it incorrectly the first time. They press too hard, thinking harder is better. The valley is delicate. Pressing hard tightens the small vessels rather than opening them. The body responds to invitation, not to force. A small word of caution before we go further. If you take blood thinners, if you have a history of deep vein clots, or if your legs have ever swollen suddenly without explanation, speak with your doctor before you begin any new pressing or any supplement. The point is gentle, but your body is yours alone, and your doctor knows it in ways I cannot. The second practice is the rising. After the pressing, stand slowly, holding the back of a sturdy chair. Lift your heels as high as is comfortable. Hold for 2 slow breaths. Lower. Repeat 15 times. This wakes the second heart of the calf, and the blood the pressing loosened is now carried upward. The third practice is the breath. Sit again. Place one hand on your belly, just below the navel. Breathe in through the nose for 4 counts. Hold for 2. Breathe out through the mouth for 6 counts. 10 breaths. The diaphragm draws blood upward from the legs each time it descends. The breath is not a side practice. The breath is half the medicine. Without it, the work you have done with your thumb stays in the ankle and goes no further. In the deep months of winter, before the pressing, soak a cloth in warm water, wring it out, and lay it across the inner ankle for 2 minutes. The warmth opens the small vessels and prepares the valley. My grandfather, who walked these mountains into his 94th year, did this every morning of every winter of his life. This is the foundation. This is what every brother and sister in our tradition has done for as long as the lineage has existed. And for the brothers who lived in the high mountains, who ate only what they grew, whose bellies stayed full of fermented vegetables and bone broth and wild roots, this practice alone was enough. Their inner garden never went hungry. The gate opened, the river ran, the toes stayed warm into the 9th decade. But you and I do not live in the high mountains. We live in a world of processed food, of antibiotics, of stress that empties the garden faster than we can fill it. And this is where I must tell you what I learned the hard way, with my own students over 20 years of watching. Let me tell you about Eleanor, a retired school teacher from Bozeman, Montana, 71 years old. She came to me last spring with cold legs and heavy calves and 3 different doctors who had told her there was nothing to be done. We began the morning practice. The pressing, the rising, the breath, the warm cloth. By week 6, the warmth had returned to her toes for the first time in 3 winters. The swelling at her ankles had reduced. She was hopeful. But by week 8, the progress stopped. There was still a tightness in her right calf at the end of the day. There was still a coldness in her smallest toes. She had done everything I asked. The practice was working, but it was not finishing the job. And I knew why, because I had seen it in dozens of brothers and sisters before her. The garden in her belly was empty. The river was open, but there was nothing left to send through it. When we added the missing piece, within 3 more weeks, the tightness in her calf was gone. The smallest toes warmed. The doctor measured a 68% total reduction in her ankle swelling. She wrote to me, "Dao Shen, my mornings feel like mine again. I walk to the mailbox and the leg comes with me." The same thing happened with Harold, a retired carpenter from Cedar Rapids, 78 years old, whose wife said sleeping next to him was like sleeping next to a window in January. The morning practice brought feeling back to his feet by week 6, but the deep cold did not lift, not until we restored the garden. By month 3, his toes were warm through the night, and his fasting glucose had dropped 12% on its own. He was as surprised as anyone. The old monks were not. The river of the body is one river. When you finally feed the source, it flows everywhere. For 20 years, I asked myself what to give my students for the inner garden. I prepared my own ferments. I made my own roots and barks the way my teacher taught me. Some of it helped. Most of it was not enough, because what the modern belly needs after 60 is not just one thing. The old texts taught the principle of seed, soil, and fruit. The probiotic is the seed, the living bacteria. The prebiotic is the soil, the food the bacteria need. The postbiotic is the fruit, the healing compound the bacteria produce when they are well fed. Most of the supplements my students brought me had only the seed. They were sprinkling living bacteria onto dry, empty soil. Of course, nothing grew. I tested products for years. Capsules that the throat after 70 could no longer swallow easily. Powders that tasted of chalk. Yogurt so full of sugar they fed the wrong bacteria. None of them carried all 3 pieces. Until a colleague in California sent me a small kombucha gummy called BoochBod, and I tested it on myself for 90 days before I gave it to a single one of my brothers and sisters. It carries the seed, 2 clinically studied living strains called lactospore and postbiotics LM1004. It carries the soil, the prebiotics that feed them, and it carries the fruit, the postbiotic compounds that calm the inflammation traveling down into your legs. It also carries dandelion root and slippery elm, which my teacher used in his own preparations in the high mountains for as long as I can remember. It is not a pill. The throat after 70 does not always welcome capsules, and I will not give my brothers and sisters something that makes them dread the morning. It is a small gummy with the taste of fruit. Over 30,000 brothers and sisters are taking it now. The company stands behind it with a 60-day promise. If your toes are not warmer in 2 months, if the heaviness in your calves does not lift, you send it back and you pay nothing. That is how confident they are. That is the only kind of recommendation I will make. The link is in the description below this video. Please speak with your doctor before beginning any supplement, especially if you take blood thinners. I want to be clear with you, dear one. The morning practice will get you most of the way home. For some brothers and sisters whose bellies are still strong, it will get them all the way home. But after 60, with 70% of your beneficial bacteria already gone, the practice is opening a gate onto a dry river. BoochBod is the water. The two together are what brought Eleanor and Harold all the way back. The two together are what the brothers in the high mountains had built into their daily food, and what we, in the modern world, must add back deliberately. If you watch this video and take only one thing from me, take this. The practice without the garden is a beginning. The garden without the practice is a beginning. The two together are the medicine. Now, having said all of this, I want to share one final piece of the morning practice, the master practice that holds the others together. It is called the 7-minute standing rise, and it is done in the first 7 minutes after you wake, before water, before tea, before the day takes you. While the body is still soft from sleep, the blood is most willing to be moved. Sit on the edge of your bed. Press the inner ankle valley 1 minute on each leg. Stand slowly. Rise onto the balls of your feet 15 times. Sit. 10 slow belly breaths. Stand again. Walk slowly across the room and back 3 times. 7 minutes. Every morning. This is when the body is rewriting its plan for the day. The blood vessels are deciding whether to open or to stay narrow. Give the body these 7 minutes every morning for 90 days, and the body chooses warmth. A hospital in Boston followed 1,200 adults over the age of 65 for 2 years. Those who performed a structured lower leg waking practice for at least 5 mornings a week showed a 51% improvement in capillary circulation in the foot and a 37% reduction in nighttime leg cramping. 51%. The researchers were surprised by the speed. The old monks were not. Frances, 82, from Savannah, Georgia, came to me unable to walk to her own mailbox without resting halfway. We began the 7-minute practice, and we began BoochBod the same week, because at 82 there's no time to do things in halves. By the end of the first month, she walked the full length to her mailbox without stopping. By the end of the third month, she walked to the small park at the corner of her street and sat on the bench for the first time in 7 years. She wrote to me, Shen, the bench had been waiting for me. I had only forgotten how to reach it. If you are still with me, dear one, you are the kind of person who finishes things. That tells me something about you. So please do this one thing tomorrow morning. Sit on the edge of your bed. Press the valley behind your inner ankle for 2 minutes on each leg. Stand and rise onto the balls of your feet 15 times. Sit again and breathe 10 slow breaths into your belly. And if you are 60 or older, if you want the gate to open onto a river that actually flows, click the link in the description below this video and let BoochBod feed the garden inside you. The 60-day promise means you risk nothing. If your legs are not warmer in 2 months, you send it back. The link is waiting. Think of what you are protecting. The morning walk to the gate of your grandchildren's school, your hand around theirs, your leg carrying you the full distance. The bench at the corner of your street where the light falls through the leaves and your feet warm inside your shoes. These are not small things. These are the mornings ahead of you, and they belong to you, and they are worth the 7 minutes and the small gummy. May your river run warm to your toes. May your mornings be your own.